it shouldn't come as a surprise that all of the things that you've just been talking about are turning Britain into an absolute charnel house. Every day there are multiple stabbings, and have been for the last couple of weeks now. Things seem to be getting worse, and honestly, I dread logging into Twitter, which is obviously where I find everything like everyone else, to see who's been stabbed today. And it's always awful. It's always genuinely awful. And so what I did is I went and had a look at the latest knife crime statistics we have, which are for last year. And as you can see, this maps onto ethnic differences. This is a map of the 2021 census based on ethnic group. The darker the blue, the more native British it is. And when you get into sort of the green, that's the very much minority, whereas about 15% ethnically, natively British.
So I'm seeing a lot around London and Birmingham, and if I flip back to the knife...
Yeah, so it's very similar. However, this does correlate, obviously, but the thing is, when you actually drill into the statistics, it's not as simple as saying, well, a bunch of foreigners have come here to stab us. It's not that simple. So I thought we'd go through some of the recent stabbings just to see what I'm talking about.
It is worth saying that every single time a foreign national does stab someone, that is an optional crime that has been inflicted on the people by government policy.
Yeah, and when they aren't hanged, that's an optional opportunity for recidivism as well.
Yes.
Which drives me mental. And so I thought we'd just talk about some of the just atrocious things that are happening, right? Genuinely atrocious. Now, I'm a father. I've got 4 kids. Oldest is 14, then 9, then 3, then nearly 2. Well, 4 and 2. And this is genuinely my worst fear, right? My worst fear is that this mum here, 15-year-old in Southampton, I think it was, Southampton railway station, got stabbed by another teenager. One of the boys plunged a 12-inch zombie knife into my son's head, because it's the zombie knife that's important here. We live nearby, so he ran home. I've never seen so much blood in my life. He came in and was like, "Mum, help me, I'm dying." Now, this kid actually has survived at the time of recording. I don't know, if anything happens later. But he was stabbed just under the jaw, or into his jaw.
Right near his jugular.
Yeah. If it was an inch higher, he'd be dead, basically.
Are there moves here to try to ban certain kinds of knives as they've banned? Of course.
Well, they've already been banned, actually.
Yeah, because there's a massive epidemic of Sikh stabbings and Boy Scout stabbings, because it's the knives that do this.
Yeah.
They just appear.
Specifically Sikhs.
Well,
they just appear like the dagger appears before Macbeth and compel them to do it.
Well, the blade itself incites to violence, doesn't it?
I mean, maybe this is obvious, but in the United States, you probably know this, there's very little correlation between, say, gun ownership and actual crime. So the highest rates of gun ownership
are in the reddest areas, which have the lowest crimes.
They're essentially the Scandinavians in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and not specifically the cities. So it's a very specific demographic, heavily armed, and extraordinarily low violent crime rates, right? They keep their doors open at night and so on. So just to get a sense that it's not the weapons doing this.
But I want to make it clear it's not just an ethnic problem.
No, definitely
because
not.
It's very... I mean, we don't know who did the stabbing in this, but Southampton is not a particularly diverse area yet. It's getting more diverse, but who knows? But this is... I just want to show people the normalcy of the stabbings, right? This kid at a train station runs home, mum, pouring with blood, right? This Chessington World of Adventures. This is the sort of place I take my kids during the summer holidays. 2 men got stabbed in the car park for this. It was middle of the day, 2:35 p.m. in the afternoon. One man was taken to hospital with major stab wounds. Another one was found with minor injuries. It's believed that 3 men involved in the incident knew each other. So, again, the previous one, the kid probably knew who stabbed him. And this one probably knew who stabbed him, right? There was a woman killed last Sunday. Alberta Obimnim died at Barnard Road in Gorton. A 17-year-old and a 64-year-old man were also taken to hospital for treatment. A man was arrested with mental health problems. Oh, yeah.
They said he was known to the family.
Yeah, he probably was related or something like that. He probably was of an ethnic minority. But he was detained under the Mental Health Act, a 22-year-old suspect, and as the police said, were known to one another. So probably stabbing inside an ethnic community. But there are lots of examples of this that are not in these ethnic communities, which is very difficult for people on the right to talk about, because we've got this kind of, I don't want to say cope, but it feels like it's a bit of a cope where it's like, well, it's the foreigners doing all the stabbings, therefore, if we just got rid of the foreigners, the stabbings would end.
It's not all, but I do think, again...
It's not even most.
It's worth... This
I've got the stats.
Per capita, but it's worth carving out that all of those people being here is optional, so that is a problem we can deal with.
I agree, but the thing is, the fact that actually a lot of youths are, native English and Welsh and whatnot, also doing this is something that we have to deal with. Right, this is a problem
and
we don't have a choice about.
The goal of getting crime to zero is never going to be achieved anyway, right? So we have to take some violence as part of the background noise of the human condition and so on. All you can do is tinker at the margins with laws, with social norms. When social norms break down, though, violence does tend to go up. So there are things that you can play with there, not just in terms of law, but in terms of fostering communities that have high social trust and so on.
But it's the kind of violence that's happening that is new to English life. And this is just shocking. I mean, this was from, what was the date on it? It was literally the other day.
Just 22nd of August.
Yeah, just last week.
That was yesterday.
Oh, was it?
Yesterday.
Oh, yeah, Christ. Okay. This is the thing, right? These things happen so often that they just kind of blur into it's just stabbings are the background radiation of British political life at the moment, British social life. So, this I think this was published yesterday, but this didn't happen yesterday. It was January 27th last year, in fact. But this young girl, Holly Newton, was knifed multiple times in an alleyway in Hexham, Northumberland. That's 96% English, right? She was stabbed by a boy who was also English, who she knew from school.
Do we know the name of the boy? Because he's a minor.
We don't know the name of the boy.
So we don't know that.
That's, okay, fair. But I'm going to get, if it's 96%...
It's fine to make the presumption, I'm just saying, we don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to make the assumption. Because the way they're talking about it is not in the sort of protective way that they talk about it.
Yeah, there's no euphemism like teen or scholar or something.
Yeah. Existent issues in our school system.
Yeah. And apparently he had been diagnosed with autism, apparently, so,
Oh, yeah.
But he had been following her for 45 minutes, found her in an alley, just repeated stabbings. This girl. Horrific, just the most horrific thing. Multiple blows on her back, head, and face. And he continued to stab her after someone tried to pull him off, and then he stabbed the boy who pulled him off, right? And it's just like, this is mental. Like, this isn't just a diversity problem, right? There is a problem with the way that young people view one another at this point. Right? Stabbings is just a normal thing to do. I mean, and the thing is, it's not just young people either, right? I don't know what has happened in this particular case. This was from this week as well, where a 28-year-old man, Jordan Wilkes, stabbed a 9-year-old girl at a block of flats. It's like, what are you doing? And again, this is in Christchurch in Dorset, 95% English. This is not a diversity problem. This is a problem with something is going wrong in society itself, where we think that for some reason knives are just a normal thing.
I think this was a domestic occasion because there was a 50-year-old woman who was also arrested and questioned but not charged in connection with this, and it happened in a stairwell, so I think it was some sort of argument within the flats.
Maybe, and I'm sure it is, but the point is, this didn't used to be the way we resolved our problems, right? And I know that lots of young people these days are, and I've seen loads of interviews and you speak to young people and they are afraid, right? They are afraid that other young people have knives. And so they feel the need to carry knives as well. And this is not just in the minority communities, this is in the normal sort of majority community as well. And it's something that we actually have to start addressing. Because, like I said, we've got the statistics from last year and I thought we'd just go through them, right? So as you can see, the knife crime is unbelievably high. If I can actually get it over here. So just to give you their summary, in fact. So in 22-23, there were 50,000 offences involving a sharp instrument in England and Wales, which is 4% higher, but obviously lower than 2020. Since then, the total number of offences involving a knife or sharp instrument, which includes Greater Manchester but excludes Devon and Cornwall because their recording system apparently is something weird, but I can't imagine there's that much in Devon and Cornwall. It has gone down slightly, but again, it's not anything significant. I mean, you can see it. Like, it's still 44,000, then it's gone up to 50,000 again. And so this is the highest we've ever had for homicides. Now, you would argue, well, it's about the population. There's more people here. Sure, but there are more than twice as many, more than twice as many. So this began recording in 1977, where there were 135 homicides a year involving knives, broken bottles, whatever, and this counted 33% of all of them. Well, in 2022, there are 282. So if the population hasn't doubled, then that hasn't tracked with population growth. And it's also 41% of all homicides now, so they're being used more often. So this has just become a cultural norm. And again, this is not just among minorities, but we'll get to that in a minute. Can I get to page 12 on this? I wonder if I can.
I will point out that when you do the demographic breakdown of just specifically London, it is overwhelmingly the minority communities.
But the problem is, these things are not just happening in London.
Yes.
And they are going to places that are almost 100% homogenous. So, am I on page 12 here?
Go down. Is it?
Yeah, so this is where I got the thing. And so, you'll notice that there are, parts that are not necessarily very diverse, where they have much larger numbers of stabbings now. I mean, it's not good. This is not good. And this is, there are correlative factors. So, like, North Yorkshire has the lowest rate of offences per 100,000 at 35, and of course West Midlands Police have got 178 per 100,000. So it's not that it doesn't also track with diversity, obviously, but it isn't just the minorities. For example, Gwent in Wales, a small area of Wales, they had the largest percentage increase in knife offences from 284 in 2022 to 372 in 2023, 96% Welsh, right? So unless there's a very, very active contingent, but again, as we've seen in like some of these examples, it's not just the diversity; it is the white people themselves doing it as well.
Social norm breakdown.
Exactly, and it seems to be among younger people, obviously. In Dyfed Powys, which I can't pronounce correctly, 27% increase from 180 offences in 2022 to 228. Again, 96% Welsh. So it's not just the diversity, and it's not just the kids. There seems to be a general...
Maybe the lack of kind of internal restraints that would come in a more traditional society. Yeah. I'm not saying we can or should necessarily go back to that, but...
I'm saying...
I know. But obviously, in a sincerely believing religious society where there's more monitoring and more of a sense that this is just intrinsically wrong, as opposed to what penalty I might pay right now, there's going to be less inhibition to commit these kinds of crimes. That's got to be true.
I think so. And I think as well, there's a kind of permissiveness or freedom that young people have these days that they just don't need. I really don't see the point of allowing them to just go roaming the streets. It's like, no, force them to do things. Like, force them to join clubs, force them to go hiking.
They don't need to work anymore either.
Yeah,
even in the 70s and 80s, it was normal to have a job as a kid, as a teenager. You kind of had to, and your parents would make you if you didn't want to do it.
It's really hard to get one now, though, when you're competing with the entire third world at very low wage rates. I mean, I remember, again, I'm born in 97. Yeah. I remember trying to go and get Saturday jobs, and I had a couple, but you couldn't just walk up to somewhere and hand your CV in. You have to either do the sort of multiple rounds of interviewing process because they've already advertised online via LinkedIn, or you're competing for, your Saturday shift at McDonald's with...
Sure, but even if they aren't working, don't just... Why are they roaming the streets? No, get them to go to like scouts or something.
Because about
I'm really serious about it.
Yeah, about 44% of them don't live in a household with their dad.
Exactly. I mean, just to go through a few more statistics, what's interesting is that juveniles, so 10 to 17, were offenders in 18% of the cases. So we want to be like, oh, well, it's kids. No, it's not just kids. I mean, that is a massive proportion, obviously, but it's not just kids. And so, like for 82% of the cases, it's adults doing this. So there's just this huge, like you say, breakdown in social norms where the expectation in society, I mean, when I was a kid, if I had a problem with someone, well, I'd have a fight with them, right? And okay, I might get a bloody nose or something, but I didn't die. No one died. It was totally normal. And that seems to have escalated to where, well, we've both got knives, so we're going to have a knife fight now, which is obviously atrocious. And, of course, the authorities just don't know what to do.
But, of course, we had knives as kids. We just would have never thought about using them.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So that's, the norm issue.
It's not access to knives that was the problem. And that's the thing. The authorities don't know what to do about this. So, of course, they're going to ban zombie knives, which I thought the Conservatives had already done a couple of years ago.
I think they legislated for it. I don't know if it's passed through yet.
Right, I'm sure they did. But anyway, they're going to ban zombie knives. And
Naive question from a Yankee. What is a zombie knife?
it's a knife that's fancy.
It's a machete with like decals on it that you can order from Wish.
I see.
And it's got a funny shaped blade because it looks like it's out of a zombie movie.
Easier to take a head off with.
No, probably not. They're probably not in any way more effective or anything like that.
They probably get stuck, and because of the barbs or something like that, they'll rip and tear a bit more.
Wow.
But it's more just for flash and show.
Yeah, it's more aesthetic, right?
But as if they won't be able to run home and grab a kitchen knife out of their mum's drawer.
Well, that's the point. Of the 244 fatal stabbings in England and Wales last year, 101 of them were committed with kitchen knives. So nearly half of them aren't done with anything spectacular. It's just anything you would have in the home. And of course, what can they do about that? Nothing. You know, what are we going to do? Ban being able to cook dinner? It's like, sorry, you can't do this. Idris Elba has been, the film star has been on the hop about this because he's very concerned because obviously there is a predominance of this in the black community where young black men are macheting each other to death in the street. And he's complaining that, well, I can buy a knife anywhere. It's like, yeah, but that's because they're household instruments. You know, I mean, okay, if it's not knives, what is it, bats? You know, is it just chair legs? How far does it go? The problem is surely that these people want to kill one another. Why are we living in a society where people are so ready to kill each other? It's... Anyway, I don't have an answer. I don't have a solution. And neither do they. And the kind of right-wing cope of, well, we'll just deport all the foreigners, I don't think that solves it either.
I don't think it's cope. And I still think you need to I still think you still need to see a per capita breakdown because even though...
Well, I can only get the statistics.
Exactly, and the statistics are not published for a very good reason.
But there are lots of examples, especially that have been happening in the last week or so, where this probably isn't minority violence. This, I think, is something that's seeping into the English community. And so... Anyway, I'm not saying I've got an answer or anything like that, but it's not as simple as saying, well, it's just the foreigners. It's
worth recognizing the pattern before we try to answer it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Hi folks, thanks for watching. We really appreciate all of your support because, of course, without you guys actually subscribing to lotuses.com, none of this would be possible because YouTube has decided we're on the naughty list and are not allowed to monetize our videos. So if you'd like to support us, go over to lotuses.com, sign up, and go and watch Dan Tubbs' amazing series Brokenomics about this particular episode, about the economic consequences of the riots in England, because there are, of course, going to be some and negative ones. And go and follow us on X at lotuseaters_com.